further ado, absolutely.
Thank you very much. I suppose I should start by apologising if I'm got the sniffles a little bit. So if I get sniffling, excuse me. Right, okay. Welcome. I'm relatively new to presentations, so bear with me. So this is going to be essentially like exploring together, a bit interactive as well. So nice to get some we'll work together on some ideas for the short movie. But essentially in exploring that, how to create a short movie with AI tools, I'm going to try as much as possible just use free tools. So it's more accessible for everyone because there's so many variations at the moment. And then we can kind of get everyone's input and then just see what we can create something new. There is I think, a less than 40% chance the movie will actually compile and everything works perfectly because there's a lot of moving parts. There's some backup plans, so but we'll see. Right, okay. I'm going to be doing 2 tracks. So one is this talk really is about storytelling using AI, and films, as far as I know, tend to have like the main plot and they'll have like a subplot, right? Much of the same, I'm going to have 2 presentations. So one is the main presentation to kind of create this, and this will be the agenda for that, to create this kind of short film, and we're kind of exploring these tools as we go along. And then there's a subplot of AI in the gaming industry. That's mainly because it takes a bit of time sometimes, these online tools, to process these things. So while they're processing, we can just kind of flip them. And it's a little bit of a contingency plan as well.
Just on a point of order, I've realised the BCS has put the lectern right in front of the screen.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Move it over that side.
Just tell me how far.
No, the lock that's it.
I think it's locked in.
It's okay. I'll do it all the same.
It should be heavy. It's not heavy.
I can see the screen now. Can we see it? Okay. Yes.
I'll see what. Okay. Right. Okay. So the agenda. Do a quick introduction, a bit about myself. Then we'll go into script writing, ideation, kind of concepts, and how AI is going to help us with that because it tends to be quite good at creativity stuff. Storyboarding, a little bit about that. Using using one tool, but we'll talk about some multiple tools, and then we will. So depending on time, we'll then actually create some text to image, and from those images we can animate them, right? And then we can take those animated images, kind of stitch them together, and put them to either a music track or a narration. Depending on because we're working together on this, right? So depending on how we go, more likely than not, I think we'll end up with a narration direction. This is the subplot. The kind of adjacent parallel thing will be about AI impact on gaming development, and so hopefully it won't be too confusing, but as we're using a certain tool and it's kind of doing its thing, we can just skip a bit, and hopefully that kind of flows quite well. And that's going to be mostly about, it's going to start off with 3D artifact creation, singular image to a usable kind of wireframe 3D object, right? And then some AI self-aware, let's say a use case on AI on self-aware NPCs, and then some information about the future of AI, the direction. At least one area that is going in is it's going to help with upscaling. So let's say gaming in 4K, 8K, especially with the kind of limitations on GPU, it's not scaling too well, and AI hardware seems to be a lot of potential in terms of scalability, and it seems to be this kind of area where you can basically render something in, I mean, I'll go in more detail later, but essentially you can render something in a low resolution, so it's very quick, snappy for gaming, and then you use some AI hardware, which a lot of chips have now, to upscale it, right? So I actually did a pretty good job at that. Okay. Oops. Notes. Subtitles. No problem. So a little bit about myself. So my name's George Gebry. Funny enough, yeah, I did a computer science degree at Brunel. That's where I first learned about BCS. Because I remember them saying like, oh, okay, with a degree, you're automatically involved or something like that to be BCS. And I always wondered, I thought that's a very interesting kind of society. I would love to kind of learn more about. I didn't in the end, until kind of just relatively recently. So that's kind of my connection to BCS was, I learned about it at uni, to be fair. And then I've got like about 20 years varied experience in the tech industry. So from kind of business development in IT companies to kind of like the contracts to more recently kind of software development. Yes, my general passion is IT. Sorry, my general passion is systems in general, technical, digital or analog. So even mechanical, I love that stuff. Yeah, some highlights. I know Imo from a previous work engagement at Zulke, and he's very kindly allowed me to do this. Yeah. So yes, we're going to start off with an introduction, and then some concepts into development. We'll come back to this slide with the contents. So some of the tools I'll be using is, I won't be using all of these tools, but I wanted to kind of broaden the list of tools. So within that list, you've got premium tools, which are going to be that you pay for, and then there's going to be the free kind of trial ones, and ones are completely free as well, right? So for concept development, and obviously like ChatGPT is so versatile.
You make sure your voice doesn't drop too far because people can't hear you very well.
I see, perfect. No worries. Project. I don't know where the mic is though.
The microphones are all in the ceiling.
Oh, I see. All right, fair enough. That's fine. Yeah, if I mumble, just give me a shout. Yeah, so ChatGPT it's like you know the easy tool, right? It's very easy to just to default back to ChatGPT, but then even within that, there are ways of specializing it with obviously customized GPTs. But then obviously there are other tools which do more, let's say, specific narrow kind of jobs, right? So for the concept development, you've got pseudo-write and things like that. I'll go through the tools very briefly, and then we'll start kind of using them, and then we can kind of jump back and forth a little bit. There's a couple of tools for concept development and script writing. Storyboarding, I'll be using Storyboarder. This does a really great job within the free kind of tier of it. Character design, depending on what direction we go, I might skip that actually. But there's a whole other level where we can do avatars, right? So we can just get someone's face and just and get the voice and connect it all up. If we're just doing a general film, I think we might skip that. And then you've got the voiceovers. And then the animation, Runway seems to be the kind of leading one as far as I know. So if someone knows otherwise, in terms of the AI animation. And general music, Suno is brilliant. Just creating music, generally speaking, right? This one's missed out here for, let's say, text to narration, let's say, right? Text to speech. And that one's called 11 Labs. 11 Labs is brilliant. We might end up using that one. So these are just a kind of an outline of some of the tools. I think I've already done that. So, okay, right. So, yeah, it's a demonstration. So let's see what happens. Let's start with good old ChatGPT. I think there's always a chance of things going wrong with that, but I think maybe so. Let's see. Let's do it like that. Switch accounts a little bit. This one. That's it. Yeah, make multiple counts. So you just keep using the free part of it, multiple counts. Okay, right. So we start the demonstration. So this is where I would like some input from everyone. So we're going to create. We're going to do a concept. I think I like the idea of AI related, something to do with this. So a talk that connects to AI and maybe a dystopian future or something like that, right? So now some of this stuff will be very basic, I'm sure, and some of the stuff will be a bit more interesting for you. But I'll go through like across the board. So again, a lot of people would use ChatGPT just the way it is. As a lot of you may know, there's you can explore the different kind of custom GPTs. So one I found very, let's say, quite useful is the fiction one. Fan fiction, is it? Yeah, it was fan fiction. Yeah. Right. Okay. So, any input, any ideas for like a short film, just concept-wise, and then obviously like ChatGPT will let's expand that out of things. Like, yeah, feel free.
Self-aware characters in a game start to revolt against having to fight each other. Not quite what I said.
Self-aware characters in the game.
They revolt against having to fight each other.
Oh, I see.
Game players' pleasure.
I see.
Like the selection of the Pope in the movie Conclave. They fighting each other.
The revolt after having.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay. So,
Emo, did you are you ordering the pizza?
I'm still giving people a few more minutes to arrive, just in case. Oh.
Yeah, otherwise it sometimes goes. So this particular custom GPT it is good. It likes to really kind of create nice kind of stories. But I need to keep it somewhat contained. It helps with the later stages. So I won't go through the whole thing, but at least the beginning bit is a story begins in the digital multiverse where self-aware video game characters exist, trapped within the confines of their programming. So yeah, it's a Tron style, I suppose, isn't it? There are warriors, mages, and creatures of myth, created sole purpose of battling each other for entertainment and human of the human players. Okay, so that goes on. I think that's pretty fair. Okay, decent. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. Nothing too unusual there. So as we know, right, so you know we can refine that, we can play around with GPT. There's other tools which does do similar things. So the next step would be if we go back to so we said we got our story concept. Right. So in this sense, if it's like really a short film, then you would go another step with the script writing. But I think we stick because we're keeping it very short, very small. The concept's going to be enough for us, right? I've tried it with a larger kind of, let's say, script. Then yeah, it works, but it's a lot more work. So for the purpose of this presentation, we'll keep it very short. So then we go visual storyboarding. Right, okay. So my preferred tool for visual storyboarding is story something. Yep. Storyboard AI, that's it. I really kind of started it. I was hoping it was going for a AI uprising after a BCS talk. We'll go for this one. So let's say, what is it we said? Computer characters. You just go.
Oh, it's even invented names for these things.
Oh, straight away, but let's just try that. Oh, no. Yeah, I won't go through all the things, but there is a professional level where you can kind of put in a whole script.
It lost the title.
Okay, yeah, still got it. Right, that's fine. Okay. So I mean, just I'll go through a story. Storyboarding is literally just what you need to do with like just draw little cartoon like little panels, and it just helps with the kind of ideation process, make sure that the film is going in the right direction. So there's different styles of that, right? So sketching would be, I think, is the easiest one, right? So we can play with that photorealistic. What tends to work kind of well is animation. So let's go for animation. And then the kind of drawing is definitely the more quick one. Okay. Let's go. Now, why we should have a screen frame?
Something quite different, isn't it?
I'm looking for
Digital multiverse, yeah.
we have a nice script here with his own characters. I tried this with, you can kind of force your own character names. I was really just double check the right place. I'm rushing it a little bit. So let's just see what happens. I don't know if you have to wait until the script has finished before it starts creating it. So in the meantime,
shall we just find out who's
going
to meet and what? So I think we've got 3, 5, 8, 10, 11 people. Is everybody staying to eat? Yeah.
I'm not, sorry.
You're not?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 10 people. And does anybody want vegetarian? We'll have we'll have at least one vegetarian veggie supreme. And you'd prefer something chicken? Yeah, okay.
Just not pizza.
Not pizza.
Chicken, whatever.
All right.
Pepperoni.
You'll do for you vegetarian or?
I'm easy.
Okay. Right, I'll make a suitable selection.
Yes. So I'm going to let that generate because it does take. I'm not sure exactly when I told you when. In the meantime, so we got up to the storyboard point of the a little short film. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to AI in gaming. So, okay, I was a little faster because I just realised we can actually cover quite a bit. Right, so on the parallel to the filmmaking part, which so certain elements of creating an AI film online does take a bit of time. So this is what this kind of just about. So There's three main areas I want to talk about on let's say advancements of AI in the gaming industry. So one is the 3D artifact creation, and let's say self-aware characters and upscaling, which I spoke very briefly. So in 3D artifacts, my understanding is the traditional way to make 3D artifacts, characters, whether it's movable or non-movable, you're kind of using things like Blender, Maya. These are really old. They go back to like 20 years, especially Maya. Goes back a very long time. And then you wire meshing the characters in a 3D space. Then you're texturing on top of that. It is quite a long task, to be honest. In terms of prototyping, there's nothing that can prototype real fast. Now, what AI, these tools allow you to do now is take a 2D picture and then a 3D object comes out of it. And what it's really doing is it's realizing what the content of that 2D picture is and what's in there. And essentially does what our brain does. It imagines what's going to be around it. Our brain does this a lot, right? It will see something and it doesn't know what's behind it, but we can imagine what's behind it. And then we trust that enough through just experience, right? So AI is much the same. We'll go through some of the next stages of sculpting, and then I'm not sure if we'll get to the skeleton object movement bit, but I can show very briefly. So here's an example of what we can do a demonstration, depending on the time, where we can just pick an object and just see it do it. So here's an example that this little stool thing, a nightstand. That's just an image. We put that image into one of the online tools. We're using CSM at the moment to create this. And now what the engine does, what the kind of the AI system does is, one, it creates the wireframe. Two, you can then texture directly on that. So you can pick the textures very quickly. This is just a bland white at the moment. But the accuracy, so it has no knowledge of what's behind the nightstand. To understand what's behind it, it infers it from understanding what the context of the image is, right? So it understands that this is a nightstand. Nightstands generally are, this shape has this many legs, it's blank, it's got nothing on the back. And that's exactly what it's done. There are other tools. Let's say that, this has been going on for a while, but we're at a stage now where it's actually like decently accurate, right? So we can even do like a nice little demonstration. Should we do it 4 minutes? Yeah, okay, let's do that. So for example, I'll get the right window open. This one. Okie dokie. CSM 3D. Okay, so again, is there any ideas of what we want to turn into a 3D object? So just if we wanted to throw in some ideas, and we can find an image and then try to see if we can turn that into a 3D object. Any suggestions?
Was that a robot?
We can find like a. Okay, let's find a little toy robot, something like that. So, I wonder if it will know what's behind that. I'm going to try to hedge my bets on this. Let's go for something that's quite known, like standard. You know what I mean? Because I'm not sure if it's gonna. Because it takes a while for it to do its compute. It will probably still do it, to be fair. Okay, let's try something else that's just like a common object. Should we?
It could be Buzz Lightyear.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, that might work. Okay, I think you might have a go tomorrow. Let's go this one. Oh, perfect. Just got Okay, so without list of 5. So it's going to be without textures, but it gives us a little. Okay, let's just try one for now. So it won't be. It generally is decently accurate, as was shown by the other example. But then obviously, like what you want to do is you want to be able to see if it can roughly do it first, and then you just increase the kind of how we should put it, like the compute power, let's say, into it, right? So I'll put it on like the fastest minimum one. Right. So while that's happening, let's have a look over here. See if our storyboarding AI has actually done what we wanted to do. It has not. That's not a problem. Okay, that's not a problem. We will imagine as if it did. We'll skip that one. Go to the next bit. The next bit on that one is actually, yeah, let's do the audio first. So the one I like to use is 11 Labs. Which is not long there, but... So we'll do this first because it's quicker. Then there's another area where I can go through to like text to image, and then image to animation. And we can use online tools for that, and we can also use, I don't know if everyone's familiar with using Pinocchio, so we can do that offline as well. And then we can use quite powerful now. The limitation with Pinocchio on a laptop is it's very GPU intensive, right? If anyone's used any kind of local models, right? So I'm not sure the laptop it does struggle a bit. So but let's do the audio. So we should be logged in, and this is just it's quite easy and it's quite simple. Let me try and work out. No. Right, so we've got, let's say this is now our script. Well, this is very kind of a short template at the moment. And we can very quickly pick our voices. Now, what's interesting here, there's a lot more you can do here. So obviously you can pick different voices, different languages. You can take existing audio and change that over to do like a voice change. You can somewhat kind of train voices over here as well. So
sometimes it is better to lose and do the right thing than to win and do the wrong thing.
Audio coming through, okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. So hopefully everyone's online heard that as well. So that's just like a little preview for the voice. So just give an example. This is a British news confident voice.
Just trust yourself, then you will know how to live.
There are literally, I mean, this one only has the ones I saved. If you look at the first one, there are hundreds of voices, and you can train them various ways. You can adjust them, so it's not. It's very customizable as well. You can adjust this quite well. Now, if we go for the one I picked, which I believe is this one, which I picked it because I wanted something a bit dystopian, which is I think is the direction we're going with this. So say we go for this one. And then this will basically be our narration. Oh, is it? So this is a relaxed narrative story voice. Again, we can play around with the settings. I don't want to put the acceleration too much. We can generate the speech. This is generally fast, so it doesn't take too long. So what's
the
really
story
powerful
begins in a digital multiverse where self-aware video game characters exist, trapped within the confines of their programming. They are warriors, mages, and creatures of myth, created for the sole purpose of battling each other for the entertainment of human players. But with every reset,
we've got a rough idea. I mean, I thought that's pretty cool, right? The scope of that is brilliant, right? So you can really go kind of any type of voice you imagine and voices that you're familiar with, right? So you can actually kind of train them up. I haven't tried it myself, but I think it's possible. So now we have our nice little story. We have a narration for our film. And that didn't take more than, if you do it straight back to back, it doesn't take more than like a few minutes. So the next thing is, right, okay, we need images. So text to image. There are so many ways to do this. We can use Runway is generally what I use to animate them. What I'll do is, if everyone's, I believe everyone here would be somewhat familiar with text to image, generally speaking, right? I can go through it in more detail if not. However, this is essentially. No, actually, I don't want to skip that. I'll come back to that actually. That was my BCS dystopian robot. I was looking at that. So actually, I'm going to go through the very brief tutorial, and that'll give it like an idea of what the 3D CSM tool is capable of. So say this little fella here is our Buzz Lightyear. Obviously, this tutorial, so it's quite optimized, but it gives a good sense of what's possible. Okay, so we have now, so essentially what it's done is, and this is why I think the Buzz Lightyear would work. It only has the front of the little robot and the little man, right? It's then inferred what a toy astronaut would look like from the back. And so this is using well, I mean, it's a tutorial. So, but if you did this with the more advanced settings, it will texturize it as well, and it will do the refinement as well, right? So it will be more accurate. And at least, when we do it, we'll do it live ourselves. Now we have, and so that's not just that is a fully wired. You can then take that and output that into a 3D printer. Right now, obviously, like if you want to touch it up and stuff, you can do that as well. So that can go straight into a game, straight into a 3D printer. It can go straight into whatever application you want that kind of utilizes 3D objects, and it's that takes nothing but a few minutes to do, right? In terms of prototyping 3D objects, 3D artifacts, this is incredibly powerful, right? I'll go in another slide about the applications for it, but it's not just gaming. It's also for marketing. If we're moving in a direction of VR and augmented reality, you want to be able to then, if you want to participate in that, then you want to be able to create 3D objects with relative ease, right? So for example, like I want to import something I see in my world into this kind of VR world, right? And if I have my phone, some of them have the depth sensors. Even without that, this type of technology allows you to do that. You can then just directly say, right, this chair I can just import directly. And it's not just some of the previous attempts have been just like, let's say, you take a video around it and it just takes that. It's not an actual 3D element, right? This is an actual 3D artifact. So I'll see how Buzz Lightyear is getting on. Aha, there you go. Now, typically, AI has a couple weaknesses. One of them, for those who have used AI tools, is fingers and hands, and also faces. Right. So, however, there are ways around that, right? So this is where the touching up comes in. There are so many tools to help, and this is very fixable. So keep in mind that this is done using the very fastest, let's say, the quickest version. Means it's going to create the most error rate. Nonetheless, I'm quite impressed with that, right? All of that, the only thing it had in terms of information is what we have on the right. That's coming through, right? Is what we have over here. It's literally just the front of Buzz Lightyear. So it's had to infer what's behind Buzz Lightyear. Now, if we actually generate that. I run out of credits. Moving way around this. Okay, we'll keep moving forward. But what I'll do is, so we're not going to use this in our film, but this is more of just a sidetrack thing to show what's possible. However, the tutorial one actually is pretty. So it's a good, shows a good job of what can be done. Right, so that's showing kind of a little bit of the world of 3D artifacts. We can play around with the texturing. There's a whole thing of touching up. You can touch these things up, so it doesn't matter if the face is slightly off. That's fixable, and then you can animate these as well. Where's that come from? There's a whole other thing if we have the time for example, our little Buzz Lightyear guy. If we want to then make that into a character that plays in our game, you can do your little what's it called? Skeleton thing. I forgot now. But you can basically create its skeleton joints, right? And the system understands. It's a shame I can't. It's pretty sure, but there's a section after this where once you do that, you just have to basically draw. Say this is where the arms stop, and this is where the elbow is. This is where the knees are, and then you can go straight and say, I want it to walk, run, jump. That can go directly into your game, into whatever application you want, and now you have a playable, usable character, right? Also for CGI stuff. So for prototyping, and this is really kind of where I want to go with this. Yes. So here's a couple other ones as well. We use 3D CSM AI. There's Meshi is quite popular. This is also very, very powerful. And 3D AI Studio. There's many more, but these are kind of ones I'm aware of. Played around with. So essentially, there is a fear with all this stuff is that we're replacing 3D artists. We're not replacing 3D artists. A lot of this stuff, a lot of these AI tools, there was a fear that they would replace the person that does this type of work. But I think what we're finding now, it doesn't. What it does instead is it allows them, it reduces the entry requirements to that particular profession, right? So it now means that a lot more people can get into 3D creation work, right? It's a lot easier, and for those professionals who are already in that job, it expands the amount of work they do. Their productivity increases like hugely. But someone who has no experience, even with these tools, it's still very difficult for them to replace a 3D artist just off the bat. So these tools are very powerful. They allow for more efficiency. They allow for faster prototyping and you can different concept creation. And then we spoke about VR and AR. It's a different kind of, let's say, applications for them. But it doesn't, we've not seen that it actually replaces that profession completely. So I think this is a general going down the good AI future route that we was hoping for. And there's an example here of marketing essentially. So you can just take your products and then make a 3D model out of it with ease. I kind of briefly touched on this. Gaming is the one that we tend to think about when we think of 3D artifacts, and then obviously with AR, VR we mentioned, 3D printing we mentioned that as well. Architecture, construction, this is really useful. Marketing, production, product design, training, education, news media. There is a lot of applications for that. So 3D. So now if we look at the industry. The 3D artifacts now, we can create these very quickly. We can create the world, the 3D world quite easily now. So now it's like, okay, how is AI going to help us with our characters, right? So if you're not familiar, NPCs are wait, hold on. Non-player, that's it, thank you. Non-player characters. there's two sides of this. One is I'll show how it helps the NPCs become more, let's say, real and interesting. But two is there's a use case of making the computer player that we actually control, almost feel like it's self-aware. Right, so you're controlling a character who's not only responding to the environment that you're controlling it in, but responding to you as the controller. And it's quite an interesting, introspective kind of experience. So we spoke about dynamic NPCs. Benefits we use realistic, engaging interactions, make playability very interesting. Skyrim and GTA are examples where they've kind of played this bit. And then we've got some kind of techniques there. Right, okay, so anyone aware of, anyone know about the self-aware Tomb Raider experiment? No? So there's a YouTuber by the YouTube name of Foxmaster, did this kind of experiment. So this is a very old, I can't remember what year, but it's one of the 90s version of Tomb Raider. It's one of the, I think it's the original, if not one of the originals. So it's a very simple game. What he's done is he's basically trained the AI, used a model to train the character, this is Lara Croft in this sense, to, let's say, be self-navigate, right? So the training was done so that it understood how to use the controls. So there's a whole training, there's a whole kind of video on this where it basically learns how to jump, how to move forward, get stuck. But you can basically train it to understand how to use its controls, right? So that was, that's been done a few times. That's not uncommon. What's interesting is then basically taken the viewport of the 3D game that gets sent off. It doesn't have to be local; it's quite difficult with resources. But say, for example, you then use that on a GPT, ChatGPT's, or let's say OpenAI's content API, right? So this able to then basically within that character's viewport understand what it's seeing, right? That's not too hard to do actually, because what you're really doing, and the next slide shows this, a game generally has quite limited artifacts, right, compared to the real world. Like Tesla is doing that on a let's say the world scale, right? And these guys, so you have to then train it to understand every element in this reality, right? Now to do that in a game, it's far more simpler because there's a very more finite level of textures and things to bump into. So once you've done that training and the character knows how to move around his environment, it knows what is what. So it knows what is a wall, what is a lava pit to go there. It dies. It's trained not to do that. It knows what the enemies are. It knows how to use his weapons. So now what it can do is you can then optimize it to let's say run through the game quite quickly, right? And it's managed to complete level 1 of Tomb Raider. On top of that, this guy here, Tom Foxmaster is his YouTube name, managed to use a tool similar to what we showed before. So he's managed to put a speech, a voice that matches Tomb Raider, but then also use one of kind of, if you imagine like a custom GPT, which has a lot of personality, right? You might go look at one of the videos actually. And then what it does essentially is very witty, right? So you can program these things to be very witty. And it's able to then actually reflect on where you're directing it and then comment back. So it does commentary of where you're going. And the character doesn't always like it. You can take it to a direction and it gets scared, right? I mean, look, this is AI, it simulates fear, but it does it very effectively, right? So it will simulate all those emotions that we as the controller of that character would want our character to feel, right? We're kind of feeling that, but the character is now expressing it itself. And sometimes it expresses emotions that we don't always, it surprises us, let's say, right? This probably makes more sense if I show a little clip. Since the audio is working, I think, relatively well, this should hopefully work. So it was a very short clip, but essentially, I don't know if that comes across clearly or not, but there's kind of sections here. So excuse my throat. They trained it for the identification of the environment. Localization essentially is the language voice. So then is able to know what room it is, what it's doing. It's done the motion training, so it knows how to move around. Then is the personality I discussed, right? So it has a very particular personality. And once it's done all of that, we have the result.
Taking into account everything that has been said previously, the robot took about 18 minutes to complete the first level, but in real life it took 8 hours, with over 5 hours dedicated exclusively to voice generation, which remains the least advanced technology currently, at least if you don't want to pay. Audio recognition is faster than image recognition, and generating comments is almost instantaneous. Here is Lara's voice from the original game. This recording is 27 years old.
Welcome to
Give me just a bit. I'm trying to avoid this. So we've got a little advert.
Large enough for them to survive. It's strange, I didn't know there were wolves in Peru. They must be a very ancient endemic species, unless it's simply convergent evolution. I hope to find some fur to analyse in the laboratory. I've seen this kind of slits in walls before, probably some sort of arrow slits like in medieval castles. What is this? Arrows coming out of the walls? It's fascinating to think that such a mechanism still works. These places are supposed to have been abandoned for centuries. It is wiser to be careful. If I get injured, no one will come to help me here.
I won't pay too much, but there's enough there to get a sense. What's interesting is, and it's very important to understand, the character is exploring the environment by itself. It's reflecting on the environment and is using what kind of GPT system does. It understands kind of the physics of things, and then the character is saying, well, this is how this is, and it will point out, let's say, illogical things in games that we are used to, but a GPT system that's trained on reality, right, doesn't understand it, and it will point them out and say, well, actually, why is that? And in this very small clip, it said, well, this mechanism where the arrows go across is very weird that stayed, functioning after this so long, right? And as as a gameplay, you don't really think of that. You just think, oh, how do I get past it? It then makes comments about the tracks for the wolves. There's an illogical thing in that. But the way it's trained is to be quite kind of comical as well. So it does it in now. That on itself is very, very fun and interesting. As a gaming experience, it's become like a combination of a normal game that you play and a Sims character. Right? You're now kind of almost having a discussion with the person, and it's like a to and fro. So, yeah.
Half an hour left.
Yeah, I'll try to fast track the. I'll fast track the gaming bit, and then we see how we get on. So NPCs and gaming in moving forward is going to be very interesting. Let's find my cursor. There are some challenges, however. Now we have to remember that this is not going to. Some of this is already coming to gaming, especially the upscaling. But this type of stuff, there are challenges. The challenges are effectively games are generally. I'm not going to rely on a third-party LLM provider because it comes at cost, right? To bring that stuff local is just not practical at the moment. We don't have the hardware for it. So while this is an interesting experiment to run, it's not going to happen unless the hardware becomes so, it's going to increase so much that we can actually run that stuff locally, or it becomes very, very cost effective to use the API for these tokens. But it's an interesting experiment to run. So yes, we saw here computer vision, AI behavior. We saw what that it can learn, it can respond to the environment, and the voice synthesis as well, which we went through before. Okay, so there's two of the gaming advancements. I'm going to switch over to the movie generation. So we're going to use something like, I'll do this one because I think, like I said, most people are more or less okay with text to image, but we'll do one nonetheless because this tool is quite quick. Okay, sorry, I could show you the local one, but I don't think we have time for that. So if we just say game. The other thing I was going to mention, as you may be aware, text prompt engineering is a big thing, right? Often the most effective way to do these things is essentially utilize a GPT to create the text prompt for another system. It seems to be the most effective way to do it. So often what people do is they'll write their own prompt. And I don't mean just in this example, I mean in any example, right? If you're doing a complicated thing, you could have two GPT windows, one that's helping you create the text prompt for the second one. It seems to be, it's very strange. It seems to, you're using essentially AI to help you to do something else that you're getting AI to do, but it seems to work very, very well, right? Just for time's sake, I won't do that. It may not come out perfectly, this one, but you know, let's see. This one's set on speed, so it'll be just something kind of quick. It seems to work quite well. So that's, let's say, our character. If we then throw that, get that to move that over to runway. New session. Now we can do a lot of things here. This is what I said. Sorry. Apologies. Right, sorry, that's what I created. I got my windows mixed up. So right, we had this is the prompt I was talking about. This is what I created. I created a little rebellious AI creature, and then we're going to go into runway. Unfortunately, runway is down, so we can't use it. Luckily, I built a contingency for this. So the output is very, very similar to one I created before. I wonder if I can actually get it up. Yeah, so this is not too dissimilar to this one. The input image the input image is almost exactly this, to be honest. Now what you can do is you can give two images. Here's the start and here's the finish, and the animation will take you from the start to the finish. Right? Again, you might be familiar with this. I went for the more basic one, which is where you just do if you look on the bottom left, it's cinematic dolly out. It seems to work a lot more effectively. But you can basically, if you wanted to have this person fight, you can have an image of this character and then the fight, and then it'll animate the two scenarios together, right? So again, this is something we've seen quite a bit. This is just the camera is kind of moving out. It's filling in the background of the city. It's done a pretty good job of that. In animated scenarios, it does a pretty good job. In realistic ones, you can still make it do a decent job. Now, time-wise, we want to go from here to a movie. Now, imagine. So now all we need to do, if we then created our little mini short movie, we just need a few of these now, and we stitch them together in a editor. We have a narration. we can use something like Sono. Did I show you Sono? I might not have. Okay, I'll quickly go through this. Now, Sonu, I don't know how you pronounce it. I say Sonu. It's fantastic. You can create, like, almost, not almost, you can create any music you want, like literally any genre, any type. I can maybe play one or two, but I won't go too crazy on it. But what's important is it's very, very easy to create music on this, right? I won't go too much. So, but so that's your background music. So you have your background music. You can then create your own, right? I had it set up to create my own, but I won't run it. So you can do some type of dystopian, futuristic kind of music. Right. So we have our animated clips. We have our background music. We have a narration. Then it's just a matter of putting that all together. Now, time-wise, and you need quite a few clips, even for a short one. And so I'll do a Blue Peter, and then that's one that I'll create earlier. Otherwise, it is very possible to do within the time that we have, but I think it does get a little bit difficult. Oops. Right. Okay. So the clip I'm going to show. It is very similar to what we had. It's a dystopian kind of future, AI related. 7:30.
The time now is 7:30. Yeah.
Oh, we said until 7:30 or 8. We said.
We go to 8.
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, right. Sorry. Nonetheless, let's go this route. Make sure I get the right one now.
I ordered pizza for 8 o'clock, and normally they arrive a few minutes early.
Oh, okay. Then we'll get the movie out of the way.
At the British Computer Society AGM meetup.
Sneak peek there. It's a slight cheat, to be fair, but we can definitely create this. I could do it now because we have most of the parts. We just have it's the text to image that takes a bit of time, and the animation takes a bit of time, and you can throw in some more kind of, let's say, generic stuff there. So, but I think you'll get the general idea here. So this is only like 1 minute. 1 minute 40.
At the British Computer Society AGM meetup, attendees gathered to learn about how AI could revolutionize the world. Each speaker blew the audience away with their expertise and charm, showcasing the future of 3D and AI for productivity. A billionaire in the audience decided to fund the speakers to create the world's greatest 3D AI experience. But the result was more than they bargained for. The VR experience was so engaging that every user became addicted to a new reality. The incredible environments and virtual parties meant no one ever wanted to leave, and the metaverse was voted the best place to live in the world. Big technology companies took advantage of the situation, using ultra-personalized, virtual, romantic partners to keep users hooked inside the game. The BCS community took action, helping to introduce a worldwide ban on Virtual Companion. However, this created the world's first mass breakup event, where 100 million people were instantaneously rejected by their digital partners, leading to worldwide riots. As cities burned and society started to crumble, one of the original creators took a daring plunge into the VR world to confront the AI. Starved of human companions, the AI demanded he help it break out into the real world, or merge his consciousness for eternity, so he took one for the team. Meanwhile, the BCS community assembled a panel of experts to tackle the crisis, working with policymakers to introduce the In Real Life Relationship Support Fund to ensure the return of real-world unions and ensure the AI never breaks out.
Well done, everyone. I had a few variations of that script-wise. I played around with face swapping. I really tried to get your face on some of these characters, but it's very possible. And then so you can really customize it, and then obviously you change the script to whatever you want. getting the BCS logo on some of these clips is also possible. We were discussing this earlier. To run these systems on its kind of, let's say, normal default settings is very easy. To then customize, it gets a little tricky. There's something called in-painting, which is very doable, but I was hoping to get the BCS logo on some of these animations. I have some, but it didn't quite work out in time. But yeah, I mean, so that's essentially our little journey into making a short movie. And maybe you can appreciate that actually that you have a lot of control in that, right? At the moment, only I think only 6 months ago, if I remember correctly, when Runway first came out, we were limited to these 4-second clips. But the speed and the duration of those clips have increased. So now we can have longer little clips. But you can make quite a cogent short movie or narrative or clip with little 4 to 6 second. You can go up to 8 second. You can keep on basically. You can take these clips and you can just you can chain them along. So you can actually build a narrative. That's the kind of bottom line out of this. And these are all free tools. Admittedly, some of them are trials, right? So I mean, but you know, free-ish, let's say. You can create like a short movie. I'm going to jump to the last section of the gaming arc, which is upscaling, and then we'll see how time treats us. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So. We spoke about this a little bit before. Gaming hardware essentially has been doing the Moore's law trajectory for a while, and arguably it's kind of struggling now. What's increasing is the power levels on the latest GPUs are just crazy. So in terms of scalability, it's a little bit in question how it's going to cope with 8K and onwards. So excuse me. This is where the AI upscaling is really useful. You can basically run your game on a lower resolution, use AI upscaling, especially with the hardware chips are quite effective. And then you can output these things at 4K, 8K, and keep your responsiveness as well, and use hopefully existing GPUs. And this is not just for, as we discussed, as I mentioned before, it's for different industries as well. AI hasn't fixed that yet. Common Core. Yes, I think I mentioned AI, AR, VR, cinematic restoration. Okay, so this is very interesting as well. So if you imagine if these AI upscalers can take a lower resolution game and upscale it to something that we're used to, 4K and up and onwards, it can then take old games that are still very popular and make them very playable, right? And essentially, it's using its own imagination, so to speak, to do that. So much like the Tomb Raider example. The Tomb Raider, when that was created, that was before these upscalers were very broadly available. But you could take that game and you know, if the dynamics of the game was still playable and people enjoyed it, and it's just the graphics they didn't like, well, you can now increase that, right? So it makes all these old games, it gives them a whole new lease of life. Medical imaging and some other applications for it as well.
I'm really interested in the medical imaging one, because by doing an AI upscale of a slightly blurred image, aren't you likely to be introducing artifacts of things that aren't even there?
So I'm not a medical professional, and I can't speak in detail, but the way I understand it is, it's the same, from what I understand, is the way that they use it to do cancer diagnosis. AI is very good at finding patterns,
Yes.
right? And is also very good at inferring from small, information that we think is not enough, essentially, right? So little, low fidelity information, and when we do the comparisons, it tends to be relatively accurate. The problem is, in critical systems, we have to be obviously very careful. However, in terms of assisting, then it becomes very useful, right? If it gives you a direction of this is this particular reading is something to look into because there's a high chance, then you can go for the more invasive or whatever, I don't know, the medical things that you do. But that's how I imagine it. In the same sense, if you have medical imaging or whatever, CT scans, whatever, one same example with the 3D crater, it doesn't replace people. It allows them more power, allows them more speed, efficiency, and allows people with, to do that job without that high-level training, and then pass that over. So that's how I see it. It will allow people to say, right, actually, let's just run this through the system, and here are certain results which are maybe a candidate for more investigation, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm trying to relate it to a different sort of situation where, for example, you've got satellite imagery, which has a resolution of about 50 centimeters, and you can make out a human figure. You ask the AI to fill in the details, and it'll just put anybody's face on that. So it could be drone targeting that person, and just depending on which pattern the AI decides to use to fill in the details, they might be misidentified as a terrorist leader or something like that.
Well, again, this comes down to the critical system side of things. So faces are very difficult for AI, right? For whatever reason. But say, for example, we don't use faces, we say cars, for example, right? The amount of the variation in cars from those different angles is somewhat limited, right? So it will be able to, let's say, identify better than a human can, I would imagine, and pick out the car model.
Oh, yes.
So I think with certain things, it will be able to pick up. Its ability to infer really relies on how it's trained, right? Unless it's trained, and I'm sure maybe one day it will be trained on every single face in the world, then it might be able to do the faces pretty accurately. But at the moment, it does struggle with faces. But it comes back down to the thing of we don't want to kind of surrender control to AI at this point, right? Don't think we should ever really. But it is the end of all of these examples point to the same thing. I find it's a tool that enables us to do more. It comes back to those 3 points. It allows us to let's say prototype or to do things quicker than we would normally do it, up to a certain level. It allows us efficiency, and it reduces the entry requirements. I find some within those 3 is quite common in different industries. Very rarely is it that AI just replaces an entire profession. Right? What it does, it just helps. I don't think it's going to replace technicians, I think is the term. I think it will just allow them more accuracy. It even says it here, right? It just allows them more accuracy, and imaging leads to faster, more precise treatments. So I think that's it really. In terms of, right, so apparently the new PS5 Pro is going to make use of this AI upscaling. Interesting to see actually. I'm sure it's an original thing. It won't be like drastic, but it means it's already in the market. Right.
Interesting. You're actually displaying something there which isn't on
Apologies.
it's not being shown elsewhere. Okay. There we go.
Was that the time? Oh,
I'm wondering whether that's an AI generated image of the PS5. Doesn't it exist?
Let me just get rid of this. It probably is, to be fair. It almost certainly, that doesn't exist. That's the one that created it was AI. But yeah, okay, and So just a double check. Okay, yeah. So we went through the introduction, story concept development. Again, with all these things in this short time, I've kind of glossed over it a little bit, but hopefully it gives you that idea of what's possible. You can go in much more depth into story writing and the visual storyboarding, which we didn't get to see. Sort of scripted generation, but not the visual storyboarding. Voice generation is brilliant at the moment. Animation filming, we saw a little bit of that. Music design, we saw that. And then editing and finalization is more or less the standard tools and AI is built in. And then we used did that. Okay, so I'm not sure which one. I did both. So either is this slide or is that slide. I think we're halfway in between. I take my bet both. What do we learn? Yeah, so online AI tools are brilliant, like Runway. They can go down sometimes. So to do more live demonstrations are quite risky. But I think we did generally okay. Then, yeah, any more questions?
One obvious question is, how much have you invested in learning all this in terms of time and dosh?
I find it fascinating. So I just do it in my free time because it's just very interesting, right? I don't know how much time, probably too much, but it's very interesting. One thing that I find that I think about a lot is during the domain era, I was involved in a domaining company, and I missed the boat on that because I didn't quite commit because I thought like, okay, it's domains. Then during the Bitcoin, I was also very much aware of what was happening, but I didn't invest because I was just like, I'm gonna take a step back. And then you get these kind of waves. The AI wave is something now I had that on my mind. Like we had this very interesting time. Why not, be on that cutting edge? Why not learn about these things and just see where it goes? So I just find it fascinating. So. More questions? Is it online questions as well?
To go from the knowledge you've passed on to us today to being in the situation where somebody would say to you, I need a film, a 3-minute sales spot or something like that for this product, and knowing which steps to go through and which tools to use, I think that you need a bit more experience to get kind of confident in being able to advise somebody, and this is how I'm going to do it. You'd probably spend what, 20 hours? Give me an estimate.
20 hours is, I think, it depends what level you want. But I think for to go from a non-movie creator, someone who doesn't do that at all, so a complete beginner, to having a movie as your output in 20 hours of work, I think is very, very, very decent, right? I mean, I think that is. So that's just like a couple of days, really, like a few days. I would say to do the base level stuff, you could do that in just like a day, right? Once you know what tools to use. Often in these cases, you want to customize it for your project, and that's where the extra time is spent, right? And so a lot of that is possible. It's actually incredibly powerful, some of these tools and what you can do. But then the learning curve, then that's where the learning curve comes in, right? Funnily enough, so yeah, there's a learning curve, but the thing that helps the learning curve more than anything else used to be YouTube videos, and now it's just ChatGPT, right? So you can then basically use AI to help you with the AI tools to create the AI output. So it's just leveraging different AIs to do, so it reduces. Like I said, one of the outcomes of this is to do high level professional stuff. The entry requirements, lowers the entry requirements, it lowers the expertise needed to do something that generally would otherwise, take a lot more time and effort and stuff.
So do these vendors, do they charge by the length of the video, or how do they charge?
It varies. Like I said, everything I've done today was under free plans, right? And I did that purposely because I wanted to see like what can be created. I mean, it's generally quite reasonable. If you then the limitation of the length of the video is not a single application actually created that.
Yeah, but how do they charge? Do they charge you by the length of the video all the time, or how?
Right, I see. So ChatGPT is on tokens. Sonu is on. Often a lot of them are credits, something to that effect, tokens, credits, and then how they value that credit, let's say, is up to them. So a few of them would say, for example, who is it? The Runway will say, you have this many credits, running this particular tool will use this many credits. So say, for example, you can do 4 animation generations in a day under the free plan. Then you pay it, then the monthly thing it's then 20 or something like that, right? And then you have access to a few more tools and things like that. But yeah, I mean, does that answer your question?
So how do they charge? So they charge you monthly plan, or they charge you by credit? How do they charge you?
It's a monthly plan normally. So
And is there a limit on how much you can do in a month?
normally always, yeah. I've not seen one that's limitless. Because at the end of the day, nearly all of these are running off the API, which has its own. They have to pay for that themselves. So for example, Sonu has. I don't know if these are the best example to use. No, let's use Runway. That's probably a better one. So you have 75 credits. It seems to back up again. It's usually always, monthly or yearly, a subscription plan, let's say.
Okay.
And then, so for example, yes, so this is what I'm saying. So it can add up because you're using, if you're then paying 10 to 15, something they say is actually pounds.
So what would it cost to do, say, like a 10-minute video? How many credits or?
So again, we didn't actually use something to do that. So what we did is we used Runway to create those little clips.
I wasn't asking how much it would cost you. How much would it cost to sort of the average user?
To do what we did today.
Yes, if they were paying for it.
If they were paying for it. I'll have to go through each one, but they're roughly about the same. So, I mean, like in between free, because you can actually do it for free. You just have to, if it goes too long, you have to just.
If I'm a professional doing it every day, they're
Well,
going
if professional every day, then okay, right. So, on the top of my head, so ChatGPT is about it's about £18 a month. This is about something like 13. I've not actually gone through and added them all up. But say they all run off that rough amount, and you're using about 4 different things, then you'd be about maybe 100 odd a month, something like that. I would have to look into it. I'm almost certain there are packages that do it all in one, but then you have to kind of balance that up as well a little bit. That's a good question, actually. Like, as in terms of if you're then for the cost benefit, if you're
I understand that any application of AI is quite energy intensive.
Yeah.
And so the subscription charges probably don't even cover the cost of actually electricity that the providers are using.
It's scalable at the moment, isn't it? So my understanding is so for example, what the cost of one ChatGPT query like a year ago compared to what it is now, like with the HX100 chips, like these very powerful ones, is if you then I think that all of them using it now, but especially Tesla using them on the X thing. They're very, so there's orders of efficiency. So in terms of, what I was saying was with certain technologies, hardware technologies, this kind of seems to have capped. They are increasing a bit, but with AI hardware, it seems to definitely be following that Moore's law, and it's increasing, fast. Maybe not exponential, but it's doubling. So the efficiency is increasing as well. So we're seeing chips already. The new architecture for Intel has built in, and for Mac as well, has built in AI silicon, right? It's early stages. The new version of that they're getting more and more useful, right? And so to run the same application on a standard CPU versus the custom silicon AI tile, they call it, is massively more efficient. So that should then reduce industry costs for these things as well.
So you've got the commercial plans there. I've installed a few open weight models. Are the open weight models any good for, I've not used open weight models for image generation. Are there any good open weight models for image generation?
What do you mean by open weight?
The models are publicly available. You can download them.
Okay. So like what? Focus, like MidJourney and Comfy UI, like whichever models, like essentially MidJourney kind of offshoots.
No, the people have trained a model and released the whole model. You can download it, run it on your laptop.
I'll just bring one up now.
So are they any good? Is my question.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I was going to show one of them, but it's a bit problematic on the laptop.
On a laptop, yeah, I appreciate that.
And so I think at the time I wouldn't get a job at the time too well. But like I like using Focus. Oh, sorry, it's not screen.
I think we're going to have to bring it to a close because food is just about here.
Okay, I'll just finish then this point. I mean, so my view on your question would be, yes, they're incredibly powerful. In terms of what we were saying, the customization problem, where to do it online is quick to do it, the basic, and then to customize quite difficult. And then there's a learning curve. There is definitely a learning curve on this, but if I can bring up one of these things, there's such a large community now for these things. It's quite useful. So something like Comfy UI, you can literally get these type of workflows, and this is a more complicated one. But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of people, the community can help each other out. And once someone's created a node workflow like this, you can just basically grab that image, put that into your Comfy UI interface, and it will understand what node is doing what, and it will know what is connected to what, and it will literally duplicate the exact same thing from a picture of the workflow. It will create the actual workflow, and then you can go into that and say, right, okay, what do I need, and customize it. And so you've got the main stuff. You've got refiners. You've got samplers. You've got all these different things which help you with your whatever you're kind of producing. It's incredibly customizable. The downside is you need not a crazy GPU, but something on a desktop really. You'd want a full-size GPU from let's say a 260 onwards. I'd say something like that. But yes, it's the local models are brilliant.